We know that in Australia, vitamin D deficiency is almost 1 in 3. Now in aged care, 80% have vitamin D deficiency, so the levels are very high and it's an urgent public health concern. Now, why is this happening in sunny Australia? Because of skin cancer risk, in the winter when we don't have enough UV to make vitamin D, most people are working indoors, and even people who have very dark skin can't actually make vitamin D because they have a natural sunblock. So we need other strategies to meet our vitamin D needs. This is where diet comes in. Traditionally, diet's not recommended. You go sun exposure and supplements because very few foods provide adequate amounts of vitamin D. It's basically from animal foods, egg yolks and fatty fish, and mushrooms, which have that natural ability to produce vitamin D when exposed to UV light. And the amount of vitamin D that's produced in mushrooms blows every other food source out of the water. They can produce 1,000 IUs with just 3 mushrooms exposed to UV light. And that's above and beyond the requirement for every single Australian, including those in aged care, which have the highest dietary requirements for vitamin D, because that natural ability to produce vitamin D decreases substantially as we age. And that's why we're seeing such high rates of vitamin D deficiency in residential aged care.
The feasibility study for the MOM project, the Mushrooms on the Menu project, was to look at how easy it was and how practical it was to put mushrooms, UV exposed mushrooms, onto the menu in aged care. And then we were looking at what were their nutritional intake prior, and then what was their nutritional intake post.
So it's great to know that vitamin D mushrooms can solve the vitamin D deficiency problem, but we wanted to test the feasibility of actually adding it to the menu and seeing if people would consume it and if their intake would increase.
The MOM study was conducted over 4 weeks, and with the participants, of which we had 60 in the aged care facility and we had 12 in the independent living, they were just asked to order mushrooms, 1 meal a day. And in that meal was 75 grams of those UV exposed vitamin D mushrooms. We took data of their nutritional intake prior, so we looked at plate waste. We then introduced vitamin D mushrooms to the menu, and then once they've ordered it, we were then measuring how much they ate of it. Plate waste, did they love it? Would they order it again? Which was their favourite? And we took that data.
So the MOM feasibility study was all about adding to the standard menu that was on offer at the residential aged care facility at Shoreline and seeing, how can it actually be added to the menu? So we worked with the chef to understand where could mushrooms be added.
Shoreline got involved with the mushroom study because anything that can be healthy for a resident should be used. I mean, if you're not using everything you can use, then you're basically throwing away tools. I try to put as many superfoods as I can into the menu. And that's one of the reasons why we said, yes, let's get this open, let's get this aware. So when we put the menu together, we used all of the existing dishes that was on there and added the mushrooms to the suitable dishes. So for example, the cottage pie, we basically took 75 grams of mushrooms, depending on how many serves we were doing it, and adding it to the mince. You can take mushrooms, you can simply blend them, and they look like mince when they're cooked. So it's one of the easiest ones to do. But if your mince is costing you $14 a kilo, and your mushrooms are costing you $14 a kilo, it's not actually costing you any more money. Okay, so the most favourite mushroom dish, mushroom and bacon quiche. If you've got 100 people ordering, on those particular days, there would be around about 70 taking that, which was quite surprising because I think it was on with a roast and a lot cheaper. So there's a lot of ways of putting mushrooms into your menu that's not going to take your budget up.
Popular meals would have to be our mushroom gravy, of course. It goes with our chicken schnitzel that Andrew serves up. They really loved the mushroom quiche on the menu, and they didn't even know that they were eating the mushrooms in our spaghetti bolognese, but they all loved the flavour.
Andy had prepared a huge variety of mushrooms on the menu. Cottage pie, beef bourguignon. He added sauces that had mushrooms to it. It seemed that mushrooms could be in anything that he'd already cooked, which I think was incredible because it made it so much easier to sort of add the mushrooms onto the menu.
So the added vitamin D mushrooms on the menu resulted in the daily vitamin D intake by residents tripling. So they went from 6 micrograms to 18 micrograms. Now to recap, 15 micrograms is the daily requirement. And that meant that it went from no one meeting their vitamin D requirements, it was 0, to 3 out of 4 meeting their daily vitamin D requirements, which is mind-blowing. Now in the independent living, we asked them to just add 1 serve across the day, make a recipe from the recipe book and inspiration that we provided. And what we found is that their daily intake of vitamin D was 8 times higher when vitamin D mushrooms were added to the menu, which meant that they went from 1 in 5 meeting vitamin D needs to 100% of the independent living residents met their vitamin D targets. And their meals weren't provided to them, they actually had to make it. And what was mind-blowing for us as scientists analyzing the data is that 8 times higher intake, which to us, it means that they weren't only just having the 1 serve a day. It means that they were having much more than that, and they were having that for 4 weeks. So it's a long time of daily consumption of these vitamin D mushrooms, which to us as dietitians, we say, hey, that means that not only is it nutritious, people are eating it, because food is only nutritious if people actually consume it, but they're able to do it and understand and continue doing it on their own. And what I've heard from everyone at Shoreline and the residents post the intervention is that they're still wanting to do it. So we're having this lifelong effect with the education and the support that was provided to add vitamin D mushrooms to the diet that will have a lifelong impact on their health.
We serve them at breakfast every morning still. They're still in all their minces. We're still in our quiches. We have a carbonara on with mushrooms. We do a ravioli with mushrooms and quite a few vegetarian dishes. And people are selecting vegetarian dishes over the other dishes. So you can see it's had an impact.
Even now, people, if I walk into here, they will say, oh, here's the mushroom lady. I'm still eating my mushrooms. Check out my nails, they're growing. So yes, I absolutely 100% know that they know more about mushrooms than they ever had.
They're continuing to enjoy eating mushrooms even now on a daily basis, and these are residents who weren't eating mushrooms prior to this study. So it's really positive that they've actually worked out that they like eating mushrooms. So it's very positive from our residents.
We get older, we don't always get the right nutrients we want, so we need to be eating like your fresh fruit, vegetables, and I mean your mushrooms are just so good, especially for our bones as we get older, which is one of the big things, because as we age, we're more likely to get fractures, break something if we fall.
I was on a high dosage of vitamin D capsules, and I suppose I was naughty, I stopped taking them, and I went and had my blood tests and my vitamin D level didn't drop. So as far as I'm concerned, if I eat my mushrooms, that's 1 less tablet to take.
My message for aged care and institutional facilities is don't forget the humble vitamin D mushroom when thinking about your menu. We've shown that it's not only feasible, but it's delicious, residents enjoy it, and we can substantially increase vitamin D intake to help meet malnutrition in aged care facilities.